right now. If you're good with that. Okay, amazing. So I'm going to go through the agenda for today. The first thing is Diane Huffman, our president, is going to introduce herself, and she's going to give a welcome for us. And then Katie Jeffrey is going to give her presentation. We're going to have a Q&A, and then we're going to invite you to join WSI yourselves. So Diane, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, everyone. And welcome, everyone, to this webinar. I think it's a very interesting and important topic for all of us, whether we're athletes or just use sport as a recreational form for enjoyment and fitness. So I'm keen to hear what Katie has to say, and thank you, Perry, for helping to organize this with your team. Welcome.
Thank you, Diane. So now I'm so excited to welcome Katie Jeffrey. So a quick note before we get into this and I introduce her credentials fully is I've actually had the privilege of working with Katie. As a student athlete at Brown, Katie actually works for Brown. And so we connected then, and I was really, going through a difficult time with my own nutrition personally and staying fueled as a student athlete. And Katie really helped me through that time. And so I'm just so grateful that she's both here and that she was able to help me. So if anyone has any questions about what it's like to work with Katie after this, I would love to talk to you and promote her work. So Katie is the CEO of Fit Nutrition, and she's a licensed and registered dietitian, and she's a board certified specialist in sports dietetics, and she's super passionate about mindful eating and fueling. She holds an MS in nutritional sciences from the University of Connecticut. And so her company, Fit Nutrition, provides individual nutrition and sports nutrition counseling, nutrition consulting, and scientifically based presentations. So she worked for Providence College for a lot of years, and she also works for Brown University. So I'm so excited to welcome Miss Katie Jeffrey. I'm going to unshare this presentation so Katie can start. Katie, go for it.
All right, thank you very much, Perry. So just a few seconds here as I share my screen with everyone. Okay, so I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk today. I'm very passionate about what I do and really enjoy the sports nutrition world. So what I thought today is, So I'd give you a little bit of background about myself and how I got into sports nutrition. As many of you on the call are, I have been an athlete all of my life. Today, I really enjoy doing yoga and hiking outdoors and paddleboarding and walking and cycling. And I just really enjoy everything outdoors. However, my journey to becoming a sports dietitian has been, it's been quite the path. It has not been linear. It has been a nice curvy path for me to get to where I am today. So what I thought might be fun to know from everyone is, I'm going to see how to do this here. Is I have a few polling questions just to help kind of learn where what's everyone's experiences on the call. And for some reason, though, I cannot find where to do that now that I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, if you want me to, if you just tell me which one to launch, I can just go ahead to do that.
Oh, perfect. Yep. So if you could please launch the first question, which is, have you ever worked with a dietitian or a sports dietitian before?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear from everyone in the audience what their experience is.
Yes, it's launching right now.
Okay, great. So it looks like there's more people still answering. So it looks like about, it says about 63% of people have worked with a sports dietitian and about 38% have not. So it just gives me just an idea. I know that many people have worked with dietitians and some have not. So it's just interesting to hear what everyone's experiences are. So as I said earlier, my path to becoming a sports dietitian was by no means linear, and it was not the path that a lot of people take. So I just wanted to share with you how I became a dietitian. So when I was young, I was an athlete, as I said earlier, and I was involved in many different sports. My first sport was soccer. I was fortunate enough to have my dad be my coach, which was wonderful. I also played softball and I was on a running club. And I really loved all sports. I swam in the summer, hiked with family, did a lot of outdoor activity. When I was in high school, I played sports all 3 seasons that they had it, spring, winter, and fall. Unfortunately, they did not have a soccer team for females when I started in high school at my high school. And so I switched over to field hockey. And then I did basketball my freshman and sophomore year. And then I ran outdoor track. And I really enjoyed track. And so by my junior year, I wasn't too thrilled with basketball anymore. And I actually helped to found our indoor track program at Stonington High School, where I went to school in Connecticut. And that was a lot of fun. And so I was a captain my senior year for all 3 of the sports that I was on, and really enjoyed that leadership role. And at this time, I started to become a little bit interested in nutrition. I enjoyed all sorts of different foods. I was fortunate enough during this time to have access to high quality food and lots of variety of different foods. And I was starting to kind of get the idea that how I fueled was impacting how I was performing. During college, I was fortunate enough to play Division I field hockey, and I really enjoyed that. I also did road races during this time as well, because I still had my passion for running. And then when I graduated from college, I continued with my sports. I started a field hockey club, which I really enjoyed, and did that for quite a number of years. And then I also did lots of hiking and cycling and triathlons. But I have to say, it wasn't until after I graduated from college and I got my first job at the Pfizer Fitness Center in New London, Connecticut. And I was fortunate enough at that time that in this new first job out of college, that I was working underneath a sports dietitian and a sports physiologist. And I decided to train for my first half marathon during this time. It'd be my longest road race. I was really interested in learning how I could improve my performance, both physically as well as nutritionally. And so by working with the sports dietitian, I learned a lot of different things about myself, a lot of information that I just didn't know. I didn't have that background as an athlete going through school. And during that time, she gave me suggestions, asked me to stay curious. And I did a lot of experimenting, and again, learned that I wasn't eating enough protein for my needs. I wasn't fueling adequately after hard workouts. And each week of my training, I learned more and more about myself and more about nutrition and fueling for sports. And I was just blown away by the impact that it made. I gained more strength than I ever had as an athlete. I was recovering better. I was getting sick a little bit less often with the higher training volume. And I was amazed. And so I had a really great first half marathon experience. It was super hot that day. And I actually I did better than my goal time by quite a few minutes in that half marathon. And I have to say, one, it was due to hard work, but it was also due to the knowledge that I learned from this sports dietitian, Jen, who is now a dear friend of mine. And after this, as I said, I had gone through school and I was interested in nutrition. Unfortunately, where I went for undergrad work at Fairfield University, they did not have a nutrition program. And so I did 2 classes for independent study with nutrition with a nursing professor. However, it just was like the tip of the iceberg for knowledge for me. And then when I had this experience, once I graduated from college with my own training experience for that half marathon and continuing to play field hockey at a club level, that it solidified my idea that I really did want to return to school to pursue nutrition. And so I took some undergrad classes, got the prerequisites, and applied to grad school for nutrition or dietetics. And so I went to grad school at UConn, had a great experience. And in order to become a registered dietitian, we need to do 4 years of accredited schooling, and then we need to apply for a national internship. And so I made it into St. Joseph's College. I'm in Hartford, Connecticut, into their internship program, and that is about 9 months long. Once you go through that and pass that internship, you're then able to sit for the national exam and become a registered dietitian, which I did. Lots of studying, really glad that I passed it. And then I was ready to work as a dietitian. And I realized that in where I was living, because I wanted to stay close to family, there was really no sports dietetics jobs available that I could find. And that's when I decided to jump in with both feet and open my own company. And I started to work with active individuals. I was very fortunate enough to actually be approached by the athletic director at Providence College, who had gone to an ACSM conference for athletic trainers. And he had seen my advisor at UConn speak about the importance of sports nutrition. And he told me he went up and talked to her and said, "We need a sports dietitian at Providence. Who would you recommend?" And I was blown away that she recommended me. He interviewed me and hired me as a consultant. And throughout the years, I increased my number of hours at Providence and really enjoyed that. And then 4 years ago, I was fortunate enough to start working at Brown University as well. And so now I'm solely at Brown University as their sports dietitian, and really just enjoying my time there. I've also, as you've seen on the screen, I've done other consulting work for other local colleges, URI, Eastern Connecticut, State University, Central, and Connecticut College. I've done quite a few webinars and presentations for those other colleges as well. And so now I both work for Brown University as well as see my own private clients through sports nutrition. So I'm really enjoying this field. And so I wanted to share with you, as I shared with you my path to become a sports dietitian, I thought it would also be helpful to share with you my nutrition philosophy. The 4 things that I really stand by is that I am passionate about mindful eating, fueling, and living. I have my own mindfulness practice, and I also counsel with intuitive eating and fueling, which many people might have heard of as well. I'm also a health at every size practitioner, as well as I have a non-diet approach, which is basically means an all foods fit approach to nutrition. So I'm going to go into a little bit more about each of those philosophies, just to give you a general overview of what they are. But I'm curious to know, who has ever heard of health at every size? And if you could put up the next question, that would be wonderful. Thank you. So if everyone could answer if they've ever heard of health at every size, I'd be curious to know.
It says yes, yes for both.
Oh gosh. So
Why
I'm
don't
so
we-
sorry. That was my mistake.
that's okay.
Yeah. Sorry. The second yes could be no, make it to be no. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll get a general idea.
So if you can use the second yes as a no answer, that would be fantastic. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay, so it looks like the majority of us on the call have not heard of health at every size. So let me just give you a little bit of background about what that is, because I think it is so important, particularly with the work that you all do as part of Women's Sport International. So Health at Every Size, or HAES as the acronym is it really has these three main components. One is respect, so celebrating body diversity. It honors differences in size, age, race, ethnicity, disability, sexual orientation, religion, class, and other human attributes. It really has to do with critical awareness. So it challenges scientific and cultural assumptions about weight and how that affects us and our overall health and well-being. It places value on body knowledge and lived experiences. And it also has a compassionate self-care component as well. And this involves finding the joy in moving one's body and being physically active, eating in a flexible and attuned manner that values pleasure and honors internal cues of hunger, satiety, and appetite, while respecting the social conditions that frame eating options. And so if anyone's interested in learning more about this, HAES has a wonderful website that you can go to and learn a little bit more about this particular component, because what I'm finding is more and more dietitians are adopting this approach, which is so helpful. The other approach that is really important is a non-diet approach. And really both mindful and intuitive eating and fueling are what I like to call kindred spirits. They have many overlying components that are similar, and they have things that are slightly different as well. And they both believe in a non-diet approach. And in a non-diet approach, the focus is on eating in response to hunger and fullness and pleasure, as well as overall satisfaction and cravings, instead of placing the focus on calories or points. And you really tune into how your body feels, and you choose foods that make it feel the best and eating times that honor your hunger. And this non-diet approach asks you to pay attention to and stay curious about why, when, what, how, and how much you're eating. And it involves taking the focus off of the scale and pounds lost, and instead focusing attention on how your body feels, eating certain foods, amounts of foods, and the timing of meals and snacks. And it really believes that all foods can fit. And there's all different types of foods, nutrient rich, less nutrient rich, and what I like to refer to as fun foods. So all those different types of foods fit into this approach, which is really important. This non-diet approach also places the focus on finding enjoyable ways to move our bodies and how these activities make us feel both physically and mentally as well. And so by shifting the focus away from variations in our weight, we can more easily tune into our body's wants and needs and enjoy the foods that we love to eat. So the next question I'd like to hear from everyone is, what is your knowledge regarding mindfulness? So if you could set up another polling question. Thank you. So it looks like that about 50% of, oops, sorry, we're getting a few more in. So I'll share the results as well, but it looks like a little bit over 50% of the individuals on the call have some knowledge of mindfulness, and about 43% have quite a bit knowledge about mindfulness. Oops. And the next question is, I'm curious to know if anyone on the call has their own mindfulness practice. So 67% of you said that yes, you do have a mindfulness practice, and 33 said no. So again, just gathering some information. Just great to hear where everyone is along that lines. So then what is mindful eating and fueling? Now, many athletes that I work with at Brown in my own private practice Some, just as some people on the call have had experience with mindfulness, or they've heard of it, and others, they haven't yet had an experience with it, and might not even know, well, how does mindfulness even relay or is associated with eating and fueling. And so just to give you a little bit of background, mindfulness is being aware of the present moment non-judgmentally so that you can decide how best to take care of yourself. And mindful eating is a personal process of honoring your health and paying attention to the messages of your body and meeting your physical and emotional needs. And what it is it's an inner journey of discovery that puts you in the driver's seat because you are the expert of your own body. And it also encompasses these four components: curiosity, awareness, self-compassion, and self-care. And so when we look at every eating experience, that it can be perceived as either positive, neutral, or negative, it's a chance to learn something about your body and also your life as well. And research has indicated that adopting a self-compassionate stance towards difficult experiences related to your body may help cultivate an intuitive eating and mindful eating practice, as well as overcome body dissatisfaction, which many athletes that I work with now are struggling with. Particularly what we're finding is after COVID, that there's much more body dissatisfaction that I'm finding in the individuals that I'm working with, along with challenges with the relationship with food. And so the self-compassion is associated with well-being, increased feelings of happiness, and greater personal initiative to make needed changes in your life. So it's simply having a neutral but understanding consideration of yourself and your actions. And research has shown that self-compassion helps people overcome guilt with their eating choices, and it helps promote change. So I bring this information to sessions that I'm working with individuals, and I encourage them to stay curious, to be aware of what is going on both internally and externally. And that really then helps to foster them to make changes in a very compassionate way so that they can fine tune how best to take care of themselves in both regards to how they're fueling their bodies, as well as in other aspects of their life. Because what I've found over time is that when you start a mindfulness practice, it tends to trickle into many other areas of your life. And what I have found over time is that because I've been an athlete basically all my life and continue to really enjoy staying active and being outdoors, that my experiences as an athlete has only helped me to be a better sports dietitian. As an athlete, I struggled many times with either eating too much or too little. So either not having the energy I wanted during a workout session or not recovering well enough, or eating too much and just feeling just not that great during that workout. I'm also someone who has always described myself as having a sensitive stomach. And that can be a challenge when you're an athlete, trying to figure out, well, what foods are going to settle really well for me. And that's something that those things have really helped me then to bring a compassionate stance with athletes I'm working with to help to better understand where they're coming from. Also, as an athlete, I had challenges when I was traveling or on competition days due to nerves. And so it's also helping athletes realize that when we are feeling more nervous or more stressed, our appetite changes. Our digestion actually changes. They've shown that through research. And so having this information has been really helpful. And so by having my own mindfulness practice, I can better understand myself and what happens when I get nervous or maybe anxious or feeling depressed. And then I can be more compassionate and bring more wisdom to the sessions when I work with athletes myself. And so that I know that when I was a high school and collegiate athlete, by not having the information that I now know and continue to learn about, that my performance was subpar to what it could have been. And so that really got me. My experience with training for that half marathon and working with a sports dietitian really fueled my passion for, I would like to help athletes to be the best that they can be and have the information that I didn't have when I was an athlete during my high school and collegiate years, because I know I would have been a better athlete and I would have learned more about myself as well. And so really my mindfulness practice really enables me to be curious and compassionate when working with athletes. And allows me to offer that compassion, which then enables the athletes I'm working with to use sports nutrition information as a guideline rather than the be all and end all. And what I encourage athletes to do is to put on their scientist hat and experiment. So they can use the guidelines as a foundation or a starting point, and then start to really experiment to determine what really works best for them, their life, and their sport. And I believe that I'm a student for life. So I'm continually learning, going to different webinars, talking to different colleagues of mine, just to learn different ways to do things, because there's no one right way to fuel our bodies. There's many different ways based upon where you're coming from, your sport, where you are in your life, the access that you have to food. So many different things affect our nutrition and how we fuel our bodies. And coming from that place of curiosity has only helped me to be more open to learning things. And so I also believe, or I know that the athletes I work with are also my teachers. I learn so much from them and their own inner wisdom during my sessions and presentations. So then what do I think is the future of sports nutrition? Well, since I started in 2007 as a sports dietitian, the number of colleges and universities that have a sports dietitian has grown astronomically. And it's so wonderful to see that there's now, as a collegiate athlete, so many more athletes have access to a sports dietitian to help them learn these guidelines and be the best that they can be with fueling their bodies. I'm also finding that as I work in the collegiate setting and with athletes, both high school and graduating from college, that more female student athletes are understanding the importance that nutrition, sports nutrition has for both their overall well-being, but also for their performance and their overall recovery. And we're finding every year that increasing number of colleges are now offering dietetic programs, as well as grad programs or master's programs and PhDs in dietetics to help further our knowledge and further the number of individuals that have access to this information, which is just wonderful to see. Now, the other thing that has happened during kind of the boom of social media is that as our access to social media increases, the associations between that and how we feel about our bodies has shifted for many. So I'm curious to know, everyone on the call, what is your thought? Do you feel that social media negatively affects body image? Thank you so much for answering and being part of that. I'll share the results. So it looks like 50% believe that most of the time social media negatively affects body image. About 33% said sometimes. So I have to say that I'm more in the fact that it's a sometimes. However, it does depend upon what social media individuals are following, right? There are many, unfortunately, negative social media out there that can just wreak havoc with how we're feeling about our bodies. Comparisons, letting athletes know that many times when pictures are taken, right, it's that one perfect shot out of 100 or so that someone finally decides to post. It's doing airbrushing to help people look even better. And so what I have a list up here is just a few social media platforms that are promoting positive body image and positive relationships with one's body. It is one of my passions besides sports nutrition, is to help athletes and all individuals to feel good or good enough in their skin. It doesn't mean that you have to love your body every day. However, what I am hoping to help people to do is feel good enough in their skin on most days, realizing that we are human. In certain days we might not feel the best, and that's okay. And learning to figure out how can I feel maybe a little bit better in my body? How can I embrace the body that I do have now? Something that I'm working towards is to become a Be Body Positive facilitator, which is a wonderful program to help individuals to have a positive relationship with their body. And so that's something in the next couple of months that I will be finishing and hoping to do more with, because I think it's so instrumental in the work that I do, because how someone feels about their body is directly related to how they are fueling their body as well. And that association is key for many athletes to understand that connection and realize how they feel in their skin can definitely positively and or negatively affect how they're fueling their body. So the other thing that Perry had asked me to just touch briefly on was the NIL, which is that that individuals or athletes now in the collegiate setting are able to take monetary compensation for using their name or promoting a product. And so in the sports nutrition world, I haven't yet had any athletes that I know of that have been approached or receive monetary compensation for promoting a particular product, but it did give me some things to think about, that as what I feel my role would be is to offer support and also offer information on food products. There is many misinformation out there on what supplements could do for athletes. So helping that particular athlete sift through, is it fact or fiction that this particular either supplement or food product is what we refer to as an ergogenic aid, which means that it will enhance performance. There's really only a handful of tried and true supplements that actually enhance performance. For example, one is caffeine. Another one would be creatine, where there's tried and true research, scientifically backed research that has shown that yes, those two out of, again, another of certain amount that can actually enhance performance. But I think it's important for athletes to know that if they decide to back a particular product and the product is promoting that it is helping to enhance performance, is it actually doing that? And is there scientific research behind that particular claim? So I think that's really important for athletes to know. And I'm hoping that they will reach out to a sports dietitian or someone else who is knowledgeable in that area so that they can decide if they want to put their name behind a particular product that is promoting something. So to conclude my presentation, just I'm excited to see where the field of sports nutrition will take us in the years to come. I have truly enjoy and am passionate about my job. I love working with athletes. I love offering information about mindfulness and intuitive eating to help them to be the driver, to be in the driver's seat and know that their body wisdom is the most important. I am in the I'm in the passenger side offering information and really hoping that they gain the body wisdom that they need to be able to optimize their fueling so that they can decide how best to fuel their own bodies with anything that they are doing. And so my tagline is, by thinking about why, when, what, and how much you eat and drink, you can optimally fuel and hydrate your body so that you can perform your best at sports in life. So thank you very much. And I will stop my screen share, and then if anyone has any questions or comments, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Katie. That was fantastic. And so since we do have, people that hopefully have a few questions, feel free to unmute yourselves and turn your cameras on. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can just pop the question in the chat and I will follow up.
Well, I can start the question, I think. So hi, my name is Kanai Haneshi. I am the Secretary General of Women's Sports International. So can you talk about little bit more about this mindful diet, especially when you are working with female athletes? Have you seen particular challenges or with working with female athletes, or that area, if you can, have you seen the gender differences on working with this when you're working with athletes? Thank you.
No, great question. So I think that not too much gender differences. Well, and then having said that, I think in my experience, ironically, I tend to work actually with more female athletes than male athletes in the collegiate setting. It seems that, again, this is my experience, but it seems that more female athletes are interested in sports nutrition for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure if it's the particular coaching staff that is promoting the importance of sports nutrition, if it's, something else. I do find that I have to say the majority of female athletes that I work with are very open to exploring and learning more about the mindful fueling as well as intuitive eating, particularly athletes that have been on many diets in the past. And when I explain what it is, that it's an inside out approach, that is asking them to really check in with what is your hunger? What is your fullness? What foods do you really like rather than what should I be eating? And so it's coming from a very different place, whereas diets are looking from the outside in. The diet is telling you what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, rather than you diving into internally to ask those questions yourself and be your own driver in that regard. And so I do find that athletes, I have to say many athletes almost breathe a sigh of relief when they come to work with me, like, oh, you're not the food police. You're not going to tell me what I shouldn't be eating. I say, no, I'm actually here to help guide you and give you information, but you're the expert of your body. I really want you to start to discover for yourself using these guidelines as a foundation and framework, meaning sports nutrition guidelines, to then start to really be that scientist, stay curious. How are you going to best fuel your body? What's going to work the best for you? And so it's a really neat process to be a part of that and kind of watch the light bulbs go off as we're working together and as they start to learn more about themselves and what works for them.
Thank you, Katie. That was great. And I do see a few questions in the chat. So I will start with Ruby's question. She's wondering if you can elaborate on how protein enhances performance.
Sure. So protein is really important. It's important for muscle building and repair. That's, if we kind of boil it down to a very simplistic, it's extremely important for athletes to get an adequate amount of protein. However, not too much protein. We can get too much of one thing. So protein, really, its main function for athletes is muscle building and repair. When we're talking about, in general, protein-rich foods have many important nutrients. So for example, iron and B vitamins that are really important for overall health, which then of course affects our athletic performance. The other thing that protein is helpful for is it increases our feelings of fullness. So it helps us to keep us feeling fuller for longer when we're having a mixed meal, meaning a meal that has both carbohydrates and proteins and some dietary fat and fiber. All of those things help us to keep us feeling fuller for longer or give us lasting energy.
Awesome. And Diane is wondering if you've noticed with eating disorders, do you think that they're on the rise right now?
So unfortunately, yes, they are. And I've heard that from many different practitioners, both from the mental health field, because in my own private practice, I'm part of a networking group for eating disorder practitioners or individuals that that work with individuals with eating disorders. And in the collegiate setting, when I've talked to both the Ivy League dietitians as well as other sports dietitians, we have seen, I hate to put like a number on it, but at least a 50% increase, if not more, in eating disorders since COVID has started, unfortunately. And I think it's because for many of the athletes that I've worked with, it was a control, meaning that everything else in their life was out of control with COVID. It's the one thing that they were able to control. And there's many other components as well. COVID has really increased mental health challenges as well for many athletes and just individuals in general. And eating disorders are a component of mental health challenges. So unfortunately, yes, it is on the rise.
Thank you. And so Diane was also wondering, what about the coaches? Do you really train coaches on best eating practices and, regarding mindfulness and athletes to keep them involved?
Yeah, so if coaches are interested, I definitely work with them as well. Many coaches or many teams that I work with, the coaches will be on the team presentations with the athletes, so they will hear the information that I'm giving to the athletes. And throughout my presentations and when I work with students and when I talk to coaches, yes, the mindfulness and intuitive eating part is a big piece of it, and helping to educate certain coaches that diets don't work, because some coaches are still in the mindset that diets are the be all and end all, and that a particular weight or body mass index or fat body fat percentage directly correlates with an athlete's performance. And that's just not so. The research has shown it again and again that weight in and of itself is not a direct correlation with someone's health and or their athletic performance. And so having this very mindfulness, intuitive eating approach, or again, coming from the inside out, very helpful for coaches. And it's really great to see that many coaches are open-minded to it as well, which is nice.
Very cool. And so Olivia's wondering, she likes the mindful eating path and she thinks it's a much healthier mindset than getting caught up in calories. And so she's wondering if you can talk about increasing metabolism through intuitive eating. And so Olivia adds that it can be hard to increase metabolism gradually without counting calories.
That's interesting. Yeah. So, like I said, there's no right or wrong way to do things. Some individuals, for example, that are under fueling, and are not eating enough, they can use, I wouldn't say maybe counting calories, but working with a professional, that professional, sports dietitian or dietitian, can help them to understand this is the amount of energy that your body really needs in order to fuel adequately. And they can start to talk about amounts and ask the individual again to gradually increase the amount of food that they're doing. And again, as individuals doing that, consistently checking in with, again, how are you feeling when you increase the amount of food that you're eating? What happens when you say have this type of food as opposed to that type of food, right? Because different types of foods too will affect our energy and our metabolism and things like that. So there's so many different things that go into nutrition. It's not black and white. There's lots of gray areas. One, because everyone is different, and two, because we now know that calories are not just calories in, calories out. Our bodies are much more complex than that. There's so much more that's involved with how we're eating and our metabolism, and how our bodies work as well.
Absolutely. And looks like the last question for now, Kanae is wondering how popular or common is the mindfulness diet approach internationally? So perhaps, it originated from the US, but how common is it internationally?
That's a great question. So there is the Center for Mindful Eating, which is international. And I can't remember when it was started, but it was started by a dietitian that I know of well. She's from Massachusetts. And I have to say every year, more and more dietitians are adopting this approach, because through research learning that diets don't work and can actually create disordered eating and eating disorder behaviors. And so I have to say that more and more countries and more athletes, I think, throughout the world, and dietitians throughout the world have this this approach to it, because we do know the benefits of it now, and research has consistently shown it. And if you are interested in more of the research, wanted really encourage you to check out the Center for Mindful Eating, TCME, as well as the Health at Every Size website has some really great research that has been done about the difference between when individuals were put on a diet as opposed to the Health at Every Size approach, which is the mindfulness intuitive eating approach, and how that affected their overall health markers. So for example, stress levels went down, blood pressure went down, cholesterol went down, when for some of those participants, weight didn't even change. However, they were learning how to adequately fuel and nourish their bodies in a very different way.
Very interesting. That's awesome. And it looks like we're at the end of our questions. Am I correct? I can give it another few seconds if anyone has any follow-ups. Oh, Kanae is wondering, is this a common approach among top athletes like Olympians, the mindfulness eating approach?
Oh, you know what? I am not positive. I would hope so, just because they need to be very in tune with their bodies, right? And so if they're more following a diet, more likely than not, one, they'd be feeling deprived. Two, they really wouldn't start to, or be able to, as best as possible, really be able to fine tune how they are fueling their bodies. So I would have to say, I don't have personal knowledge that that's, a piece of these athletes, but I would have to say that more often than not, I would think it would be, because of the piece that checking in with themselves and asking themselves, right, those important questions with, when I eat a certain food, how is my body responding? What's going on? As opposed to if I eat this amount of food or this timing of meals or snacks. So having that internal kind of dialogue and awareness can only benefit athletes. And so I'm hoping that more and more Olympic athletes would also have this approach as well.
Awesome. Oh, and Kanae is also wondering, how is the perspective of mindfulness implemented in school levels like health education, and are teachers using that approach?
That is another great question. That, because I'm not, I know what the collegiate level is doing. I'm not quite sure if health classes are in this. However, the more that I'm hearing from friends who have kids in that elementary school, middle school, that more health teachers, from what I'm hearing, again, I have a very small snapshot, but that they are more talking about the mindfulness in many areas of health, both with helping students to de-stress and things like that. So my hope is that it will trickle in to other areas. I do know that the Body Positive program that I talked about, they just are rolling out a program for now elementary school kids, and within their program, the second kind of component is intuitive eating. And so I'm hoping that more and more that this will begin to trickle into school systems as well, because it is so needed and so important.
Absolutely. And very interesting, because obviously, it seems with social media, there are younger and younger, student athletes that are on those platforms. So that's really interesting. And and Ruby is wondering, what can you say about the global obesity ranking?
I'm not quite sure, Ruby, if you could expand on what you mean by that.
Hi, Katie. There's this obesity ranking. Instead of measuring fitness, the ranking measures the in terms of weight, and they also use BMI. So, well, I've heard about that, and so what do you think of that? Since now, what you're espousing is to just to go into an internal dialogue with yourself on what makes you full and what makes you hungry. That practically renders a global ranking like obesity index useless, doesn't it? We're not looking anymore into obesity. So what can you say about that?
Yeah, no, that's very true. And they've also, they meaning research like Health at Every Size and different practitioners and things have done lots of research onto, again, that someone's weight is not a direct correlation of their overall health, right? There's so many different factors that affect someone's overall health and well-being. And BMI, it's going to take many years. It started in the 1970s, Health at Every Size, and it's still just a grassroots movement because the culture, unfortunately, in many countries is still very tied to that weight correlates directly with these health measures. And we do know that BMI was actually created by, I think it's not even I'm trying to think of the year, but it was I think in the 1800s, 1920s. I mean, way back when. And then it was a very small population size. And this individual who did BMI, he was just trying to get an idea of what the kind of the general population height and weight was. It had nothing to do with health. He was just gathering information, and it was only on Caucasian white men. So BMI really does not, and then what insurance companies, it was they extrapolated it to the entire population, and it's again not that direct correlation. So I think it's also important to realize where the BMI came from as well, and that it's not the direct measure that it has come out to be. And so kind of just going back to that really it's this mindfulness approach and Health at Every Size is flipping that approach. And it will take a while continue for practitioners like myself and others like the Center for Mindful Eating to help the medical field realize that it's not the be all and end all, right? That it's more about the types of foods, your overall lifestyle, right? Your overall self-care than just the number on a scale, because it tells us very little.
Great answer. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you, Katie.
welcome.
And Kanae is wondering, for athletes who do not have access to education on mindfulness in this mindfulness eating approach, how can these athletes get more education?
That's a great question. So I think the positive for social media and everything, or just using the web, really important, and to find some credible sites. One, I think starting at the Center for Mindful Eating can be a huge starting place, because what I love about it is, one, it's international. It doesn't say that one particular mindfulness approach is the be all and end all. They said many different ways to practice mindfulness, and they offer many different practitioners. They offer free webinars and things like that. So I think that might be a really great starting point, as long as the health, as well as the Health at Every Size. I think those are the two sites or information that really come to my forefront when I'm thinking about it. I think that's really important. And then what's also nice about the Center for Mindful Eating is that there are practitioners from all over the globe. And so many times I'll see different things that they have offer, both in Spanish and in English. And they might even do other languages as well, which I think is really nice.
And do they have access to different languages for this?
You mean for the Center for Mindful Eating?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So I think just in the piece that I've seen quite a few done in Spanish. I'm not sure about other languages as of yet, but I have to say they're very on the forefront of things, and including as many people as possible. So that's why, again, I think that resource, particularly for this group, is such a wealth of knowledge, because it does expand, it's international as well.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, Thank you so much, Katie. This has been so wonderful to be able to hear your story and also hear all of, I mean, it's amazing since the pandemic, obviously so many athletes have been, stuck at home or away from their sports and from the competitive sports fields. But now that everyone's getting back into it and you're there to support them, that's just really special. So thank you for all of your work.
Oh, thank you so much, Perry. I appreciate it.
Of course. And so now we're going to wrap up and I'm going to share my screen one more time. So we want to take this time to invite you to join WSI. So WSI is committed to ensuring girls and women have equal opportunities to engage in, enjoy, and benefit from participating in sport and physical activity. So through networking, collaboration, and valid research-based information, WSI educates and advocates for positive change for girls and women's equality in sport. So if you join as a member, there are many benefits. You have access to an international network of experts for sharing research, information, ideas, good practices, and actions taken. You have a communication regarding research-based strategies to enhance gender equity practices in the sport industries. And you also have support to enhance opportunities and affect change for women and girls in sport and physical activity. And I can also add that as a member, it's really amazing to connect with so many women internationally who are doing incredible work in the sports world. And the definition of membership. So there are 3 different types of memberships. So there's a general individual membership, and there's a student membership and an organizational membership. So you can contact us if you are interested. We'd love to have you join. So you can visit our website or email us at info@womensportinternational.org for more information. So thank you all so much for joining us today. And one more thank you to Katie for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was such an honor to be here today.
So I will keep this screen up for a few more minutes. If anyone's interested in contacting us, we would love to hear from you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. That was very good. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome, Diane.
Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
It would be good to talk about some of the, I guess, issues around eating disorders. It was one of the first things that WSI did research on back in 1994 and sort of had a position statement on eating disorders, which actually